At 11:40 p.m. backstage in Birmingham, 17 days before he died, Ozzy Osbourne whispered into a friend's phone, "If I don't go out on that stage, I'm already dead." That audio never aired until tonight. Stick around for the final minute to hear the leaked clip that changes how fans are reading his last days. Because the Prince of Darkness didn't spring fully formed from a cloud of pyrotechnics, he crawled out of a childhood of bullying, dyslexia no one treated, a teenage suicide attempt, petty crime, addiction genes doctors still study, and a career so wild it forced courts to ask if music could make kids harm themselves. Here's how Ozzy went from abused Birmingham kid to metal god, to a frail icon forcing one last roar before the lights went out. Ready? Let's rewind to the wounds that built the myth, because the first scars cut way deeper than the bat bite. John Michael Osbourne grew up in post-war Birmingham, England. Rows of soot-stained brick, factory jobs, and cramped council housing that trapped whole families in 2 rooms. He discovered early he couldn't read like other kids. Undiagnosed dyslexia in the mid-1950s meant ignore it and hope it fixes itself, which it didn't. Classmates mocked the way he stumbled through words. 2 older boys reportedly forced humiliation, making him pull down his pants and abusing him in terrible ways, Ozzy later said without detail. The shame stuck. At 14, he tried to take his own life. His father walked in, intervened, and, by Ozzy's account, beat him in fear and anger. School never recovered from that spiral. By 15, he walked out for good. Low-wage work followed. Horn factory, slaughterhouse, odd jobs, nothing steady. Petty crimes crept in. At 17, busted for burglary, he spent about 2 months locked up. His father refused to pay the fine to teach him. That stint gave him 2 permanent souvenirs: a set of crude hand-poked tattoos, OZZY across his knuckles, and a vow to do something louder than the life he saw around him. When he got out, he posted a local paper ad under a nickname. Ozzy Zig, vocalist, owns PA, needs band. One of the calls that followed led to guitarist Tony Iommi, and the blueprint for heavy metal. But first, the horror movies that inspired the name would also inspire a career built on fear. Why did horror branding work when radio wouldn't touch them? A Boris Karloff horror film poster reading Black Sabbath caught the band's attention in 1968. The idea? If people pay to be scared in movie theaters, maybe they'll pay to be scared by sound. Drop the blues covers, tune the guitars down, slow the tempo. Add church bells, tritones, and lyrics about war, madness, and doom. Ozzy's eerie vibrato cut through Tony Iommi's thick, detuned riffs. By February 1970, Black Sabbath, the album, landed with the subtlety of a meteor. Paranoid followed that fall. Songs like War Pigs and Iron Man freaked out parents, drew church burnings, and still sold. Fast. Ozzy leaned into it. Crucifixes, dark robes, deadpan stare. Success came with travel, groupies, and chemicals. Early marriage to Thelma Riley and 2 kids couldn't anchor him as the pace of touring exploded. Pills, booze, and blow became sleep, breakfast, and lunch. But money hid problems until it didn't. By 1978, band rehearsals dissolved into narcotic fog. Managers complained shows ran on autopilot. In spring 1979, after 1 too many missed cues, the other members pushed the nuclear button. Ozzy was out. Firing your frontman should kill a band, but it launched a monster. How did a shattered addict flip exile into a solo juggernaut? After the firing, Ozzy reportedly locked himself in a hotel for days. Cereal, booze, and LSD in rotation. Enter Sharon Arden, daughter of Black Sabbath manager Don Arden. She believed the voice was still gold if someone could keep the man vertical. She signed him, fed him, booked rehearsals, and found a 22-year-old guitar prodigy, Randy Rhoads. Their chemistry was immediate. Rhoads' classically informed shredding, plus Ozzy's haunted melodies. Recording sessions produced Blizzard of Oz, released September 12, 1980. Crazy Train hit MTV, Radio defied itself by playing it, and the album went multi-platinum in the US, 5X certified. But sobriety didn't come with success. In March 1981, before a CBS meeting and reportedly a full bottle of brandy deep, Ozzy torpedoed music biz decorum by biting the heads off 2 live doves he'd brought as a peace gimmick. PR staff screamed. He was tossed out. Legend was born. The stunt would echo months later when fans mistook theater for appetite. Because on the Diary of a Madman tour, crowds brought wildlife to shows, hoping for shock points. One Iowa night changed everything. The Bat, January 20th, 1982, Des Moines, Iowa. Mid-set, a fan flings what looks like a rubber bat onto the stage. Ozzy, still mining the dove incident for drama, lifts it to his mouth and bites down. Crunchy, he later said. That's when he knew it was real. Blood, screams, show ends. Emergency room begins. Doctors administer a series of rabies shots to his stomach. Headlines explode. Madman of rock drinks bat blood. Parents groups launch boycotts. Promoters debate bans. Merch tables sell out. Years later, the brand would lean in again with an official plush bat, detachable head included. Behind the stunt turned myth, darker cracks widened. Ozzy's use escalated. Bandmate Randy Rhoads, growing frustrated with the chaos, planned to leave after the tour to study classical guitar full-time. He never made it, because 2 months after the bat, a joyride flight went horribly wrong, and Ozzy watched world-class brilliance vanish in fire. What happened in that plane? March 19th, 1982. Between shows in Florida, tour bus driver Andrew Aycock took a small Beechcraft aircraft up for buzzing passes. Low sweeps meant to prank sleeping bandmates. On one pass, the wing clipped the tour bus. The plane crashed and burned. Randy Rhoads, makeup artist Rachel Youngblood, and Aycock died instantly. Rhoads was 25. Ozzy later said the pilot had reportedly been up all night and using cocaine, a detail that fed lawsuits and headlines. The loss gutted Ozzy. He called it the worst day of my life. In his memoir, I Am Ozzy, he vowed to send flowers to Rhoads' grave every year, and says he kept that vow. The crash didn't sober him for long, but it did etch fear. Death wasn't theoretical anymore. Touring resumed with stand-in players, while grief mixed with substances and rage. Back home, Ozzy's marriage to Thelma finally collapsed. The divorce finalized in 1982. He later described that first marriage as a terrible mistake made worse by constant affairs. Within months, he married Sharon, who was no longer just his manager but his lifeline. Yet love didn't neutralize addiction. The next decade would test the Osbournes with lawsuits, violence, and one shocking domestic incident Sharon still discusses with a shiver. How close did things come to total disaster? Ozzy's lyrics sparked court cases in the mid-1880s, when 2 families sued, alleging his music drove their sons to suicide after listening to tracks from Blizzard of Oz. Courts dismissed the suits. Judges ruled recorded music wasn't a direct cause of self-harm, but the publicity cemented Ozzy as culture war shorthand for dangerous music. He said the song in question actually warned about alcohol addiction. Substances kept detonating at home. Sharon has said she caught Ozzy in multiple affairs. Groupies, staff, even mistaken texts meant for other women. One confrontation escalated into the Osbournes' most infamous private crisis. 1989. Ozzy, blackout drunk, allegedly told Sharon, "We've decided you've got to die," then lunged to strangle her. Others in the room intervened. Sharon later said that if a gun had been nearby, she might have shot him in self-defense. Police detained Ozzy. He sobered up in a cell he remembered as filthy, covered in human waste, and learned what he'd done only after officers told him. Court orders forced a separation and mandated rehab. It worked. Temporarily, addiction, relapse, and reconciliation cycles would keep repeating into the 2000s. So why did millions still root for this chaotic family? Because television cracked their front door open. MTV's The Osbournes, 2002 to 2005, turned rock's wildest cautionary tale into a lovable, bleep-heavy family sitcom. Dogs everywhere, Ozzy mumbling through a maze of furniture, Sharon calmly fielding crises, kids Jack and Kelly trading barbs. Ratings were massive. Season 2 deals were reportedly worth tens of millions across fees, merch, and ad packages. Viewers watched relapse scares, medical calls, and marriage fights in real time, and stayed because the family didn't pretend to be polished. Sharon later disclosed she knew of at least 6 women Ozzy cheated with over the years. One confrontation involved giving him extra sleeping pills to pry out the truth. Meanwhile, both Jack and Kelly battled pain, anxiety, med addictions, starting around age 13, raising questions about genetic risk. Turns out scientists did study Ozzy's DNA. A widely reported analysis found gene variants linked to addiction tolerance. Some researchers speculated those mutations may help explain how he survived such extreme substance exposure. That doesn't make him superhuman, it makes him medically weird and medically fragile. Evidence of neuro problems had shadowed him since the 90s, long before fans saw tremors on TV. When his body finally crashed, it happened fast and often on camera. What broke first, the spine, the brain, or the lifestyle? December 2003, Ozzy flips an ATV at his UK estate. Bodyguard Sam Ruston revives him, multiple times according to Jack. Injuries, broken collarbone, 8 fractured ribs pinching blood vessels, damaged cervical vertebra. He spends days in a coma. Medical review exposes a 42 pill per day prescription load, antipsychotics, tranquilizers, helping explain the slurred delivery seen on the Osbournes. That doctor is later out of the picture. Fast forward to 2019, which Ozzy called the most painful year of my life. A bad fall at home dislodges metal rods from the earlier spinal repair. Infection sets in, nerve pain spikes, tours cancel. Rumors claim he's on his deathbed. Not yet. But the diagnosis that follows is heavy. PRKN2-related Parkinson's disease, confirmed publicly in early 2020. Sharon says it's not a death sentence, but symptoms swing. Good days, then a really bad day. Multiple surgeries follow, including spine work in 2023 that forces him to relearn how to walk. He records guest vocals sitting, then standing with poles, then from a chair. Touring seems impossible, yet he still wants one last live blast with the band that started it all. Against medical caution, planning begins for Birmingham. Could he pull it off? July 5th, 2025. Villa Park, Birmingham. Marketed as Back to the Beginning, the one-night mega event reunites Ozzy with Black Sabbath's classic lineup and folds in tribute sets from Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Judas Priest, and more. Tickets sell out in hours. The global live stream draws reported multi-million views. Industry trackers peg it north of 8 million total stream starts. Ozzy arrives in a motorized throne, stands only for war pigs. His voice cracks but holds. The crowd supplies missing lines. Cameras zoom on tremors in his hands. After the final chorus, he weeps, visibly, into Sharon's shoulder. Security footage, described by 2 crew sources, shows him nearly collapsing as he exits. In a dressing room corner, Tony Iommi leaves a voicemail for producer Rick Rubin, giving a status update. Ozzy's raspy reply is caught on the same mic. "If I don't die out there, I'll die in here." Whether gallows humor or truth, the line chills everyone within earshot. Doctors order no encore. Ozzy agrees, barely. He waves from a golf cart and vanishes into the night. For fans, that seemed like closure. But the next 17 days got quiet, too quiet. What do we actually know about that final stretch? July 6th to 22nd, 2025. Back home in Buckinghamshire, neighbors spot rotating medical staff, what one described as round-the-clock nurses. Ozzy posts a single black and white selfie captioned, See you on the other side. Fans flood the comments. Sharon disables them after tabloids spin goodbye headlines. Corporate filings show the Osbourne estate transferring select music IP rights into a new family trust, sparking speculation about succession planning. Industry chatter says label teams rush to clear unreleased demo tracks for a possible tribute compilation, while media outlets negotiate memorial specials. Privately, sources say pain management intensified. Adjusted opioid dosing, sleep aids, and muscle treatments for Parkinson's tremors. There is no confirmed official toxicology showing overdose. Important. On July 22nd, emergency responders answer a medical distress call. Ozzy is transported. Later that day, the family releases a statement announcing his passing at age 76, citing complications from progressive neurological disease and injuries sustained over many years of touring. Birmingham projects a giant bat silhouette onto Town Hall. Tributes pour in from every generation of rock. But remember that voicemail we teased at the top? Time to hear the line in context and decide what Ozzy meant. Tony Iommi whispered to phone, "Rick, show's done." He stood. He's shaking, but he's smiling. Ozzy, off mic but audible, "If I don't go out on that stage, I'm already dead. Better a stage than a hospital bed. Just promise they'll remember the music, not the madness." That's the man behind 5 decades of tabloid headline fuel, asking at the end not to be defined by bats, pills, or lawsuits, but by riffs that changed rock forever. Whether you first met him through Black Sabbath, Crazy Train, The Dove, The Bat, or the Osbournes, you saw pieces of a life that refused to stay scripted. He survived bullying, self-harm, addiction, genetic wildcards, a plane crash that stole his closest musical partner, a near-fatal marriage fight, an ATV coma, Parkinson's, and more comeback attempts than most bands get gigs. Question for you: did Ozzy engineer his own legend through shock tactics, or did a brutal life push him into a role the media wouldn't let him leave? Drop your take below, hit like if you learned something new, subscribe for next week's Scandal Deep Dive, and ring the bell so you don't miss our upcoming episode. Because in Celebrity Scandal Land, the loudest story is rarely the whole story, and the quiet tapes we almost never hear can flip everything.